Good evening, everybody on the East Coast. Good afternoon, everybody on the West, and good in-between times to all our friends in the in-between spaces, which many of us find ourselves these days. Thanks so much for joining us tonight, whether it's your first time with us or you've been a regular. We welcome you to our beloved community. Welcome to the Bayard Rustin Center for Social Justice Power Hour. My name is Robert Seda Schreiber. I'm the chief activist here and your host for the evening, as I have been for over 125 evenings thus far, and it'll be 125 more and 125 after that. As many as you want and need us here, as many as we deem necessary to create this virtual community that has been such an incredible source of solace and strength for so many of us. And speaking of solace and strength, we have on tonight the extraordinary Kiese Laymon, who is author, essayist, teacher, and just inspirational figure to so many of us. And we're so thrilled and honored to have him with us. So we'll be talking to Kiese in a few minutes, but I do also obviously want to share with you what we have upcoming on the Power Hour in weeks and the month ahead. We have tomorrow night, we have a wonderful drag show with Newark's own Alicia Day. We'll be talking drag culture, we'll be talking Black history, Black music, and how they're all intersectionally intertwined. We will have the author of A Day in the Life of Marlon Bundo. Jill Twist will be with us. So excited about that. This is a fabulous book, Men to Avoid in Art and Life by Nicole Trissini. Nicole will be with us. Peter Cooper is an illustrator, a journalist, and an author, has been doing the work for over 3 decades. Cannot wait to talk to him about how incredibly important his work has been during that time. We're going to have a folk concert with renowned musician David Brzezinski, I think doing the Bob Dylan songbook. Very excited about that. Jose Vilzon, wonderful educator and activist, going to be with us. Kurt Anderson, the author of on the New York Times bestseller list right now, Evil Geniuses, The Unmaking of America. Brian J. Jones, who has written the definitive biography of not only Washington Irving, Jim Henson, George Lucas, and Dr. Seuss. Not a bad cast of characters there. We're going to have on Martha S. Jones, wonderful author, wrote this book that is coming out, Vanguard, How Black Women Broke Barriers, Won the Vote, and Insisted on Equality for All. And Sam Park, ladies and gentlemen, and my non-binary friends, who you saw and heard last week at the DNC convention, giving the keynote for the LGBTQI community. Sam is the first openly gay member of the House of Representatives in Georgia. Can't wait to talk about his journey. And Alicia Day tomorrow night. That's not all, folks. We have also coming up Josh Gondelman, author of Nice Try, Stories of Best Intentions and Mixed Results. Also involved with DeSeuss and Mero, the show, which I'm sure you've seen on Showtime. We are so excited to welcome Carly Ousden with us, director of wonderful films. Lynn Zimmer, the creator of Queer Kids Stuff, is going to do a concert and a talk with us. And Thomas Frank, the author of What's the Matter with Kansas and The People Know. So excited about all these things. Elise Hogue is going to be with us, the president of NARAL, Pro-Choice America. And finally, Adam Gopnik will be here actually Monday. And he is the author of 1,000 Small Sanities, The Moral Adventure of Liberalism. And that is a wonderful book that not only is wonderful in and of itself, but the fact that Bayard Rustin is a strong character in the book, and he talks about how Bayard influenced liberalism through its evolution. So we're very excited about that. But we are incredibly excited about our guest tonight. Kiese Laymon is such a strong member of our community in so many different ways. Born and raised in Jackson, Mississippi, author of Long Division, How to Slowly Kill Yourself and Others in America, and Heavy, an American Memoir, which was the winner of the Andrew Carnegie Medal. Work has appeared in Esquire, McSweeney's, New York Times, ESPN, the magazine, the LA Times, NPR, The Guardian, Vanity Fair, and oh so much more. Heavy is such an important book. I went to the center, our headquarters in Princeton today, which I haven't visited in about a week or so, to get our copy from our social justice library, and it was missing. And that's how important and meaningful a book it is. Someone has it in their home now, and I'm sure they're enjoying it, and that is more meaningful than it being on our shelves. So when things go missing, we get upset. When books go missing, I feel like that is a wonderful thing, that someone has taken it to their homes, to their families, to their community, and is going to share it out in that way. So we'll just get another copy. That's not a problem. And it's just very an acknowledgement of how important this book is. So without further ado, let's bring on the author himself, and someone who I find an inspiration personally, Kiese Laymon. Thank you so much for joining us, Jay. Kiese, so thrilled to have you with us.
What's going on? I'm so happy to be here. Can y'all hear me?
Yes, we can.
And thank you for inviting me.
Oh, thank you for being here, and thank you for being Biggie with you. I appreciate that in the background.
Oh, yeah. Somebody gave me that.
That's a nice print. How are you, my friend?
I'm holding on, trying to figure out what everything I thought meant actually means, like everybody else.
I hear that.
Yeah.
I mean, we've done over 125 of these shows, Power Hours, and that's been the overreaching question of almost every guest is, we have the personal quest for identity, and what does that mean right now in just how batshit crazy everything is, and what can we do to make sure we stay grounded during these times? And that's why I've been so excited and so thrilled and looking forward to our conversation tonight. I know that so many of our community have read your books, you read your work, and you just had that incredible piece in Vanity Fair that was so powerful and is blowing up, rightfully so. Some of the things you've said, I have a few things that really spoke to me that I wanted to share with the community as we talk. And, I always hate quoting authors back to themselves, but your words are so meaningful and powerful, and I think that they set context for us. So the first thing that I think really sets the mood is you say, quote, "America seems filled with violent people who like causing people pain, but hate when those people tell them that pain hurts."
Yeah. I wish, sometimes you write sentences and you're not sure if they're true. And for me, I hope they're not true. But, I wrote that sentence at 16. And, it's just true. You know what I mean? It's because we're people, right? Like when that in that sentence is like, Americans like causing people pain. And I think if you believe in all the structural shit we believe in, whether those of us say we derive pleasure from it or not, like I think there is some pleasure to be derived from exploitation, sadly, in this nation, in this world. And then the worst part of it all is that I think we all, though we all are pained, I think we just hate when fucking people we hurt tell them that some shit hurts. You know what I mean? Like at least that's one reading of this American experiment. And I know I'm guilty of that for sure.
You are such a dichotomy, my friend, because I've listened to you speak. I've seen you appear, and again, I forgive me. It's to share the screen with you is a moment for me. So I'm going to try to keep it together. But Jen Baker was on last night.
Woo! Jen is a force. I love Jen. Grateful, brilliant force.
Yeah, and she said that she was so thrilled that you were coming on tonight. And she said that she was so excited for me because you're such a teddy bear. And I said, how is that possible? Reading your work, but you see it. I was watching today. You did a reading of Heavy when it first came out. And I'm not sure where you were. Forgive me. Might have been Chicago. And you get up on the podium and you say, I see some little ones in the audience. And is it okay if I curse? Because I'm going to curse. And then you asked, it was such a beautiful thing because you were so aware of the community that you were involved with at that moment.
Yeah, I mean I just think that's the good part of Mississippi, you know. It's not. I mean, everything is performative, so it's performative, but it's also sincere. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, fam. Like down here, where are you from?
Originally Brooklyn,
Okay,
but then East Windsor, Princeton, Central Jersey,
okay.
Jersey, Central Jersey. So that's where I am now.
So my experience of Brooklyn and Central Jersey is like the antithesis of where I'm from in this way. Do you know what I mean? Like and when I say we, I'm talking about Latinx folks, I'm talking about indigenous native folk, I'm talking about white folk. Like, you know, there's just like, we call it home training. There's niceties that you're supposed to have, you know, like if somebody's older than you, I don't give a fuck who they are. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. If they're younger, if they're a child, you know, and the parent is with them, you know, you need to ask before you say anything that could put more work on that parent's plate. And I think the irony, though, the paradox is that we're also fucking, you know, arguably the most fucking violent state in this country. And I don't just mean fucking murders and shit like that. But yeah, you know, I just think you should try to treat people kind, and you should try to treat people kind. You should try to treat people kind, and then when you find out that they're not going to reciprocate, you got to do something else, you know.
And you do that through your writing. Your writing is so meaningful, but it's also so powerful. I mean, but so how aware when you are writing, and I love, forgive me, I love the mechanics of it. I love going into, so you're sitting at your desk and you're writing. Do you consciously think, okay, I'm going to go into a piece that is powerful, and then do you consciously pull back and say, now it's time for the poetry, now it's time for the magic, now it's time for the beauty, or does it just happen naturally as you're working?
Man, you know, I've never been asked that question. That's a great question. I think usually for me, like the vision of the piece a vision of the piece comes first. And my vision is like, I would say my vision is powerful, but I so seldom like get close to the vision. But every now and then I go beyond it. Like maybe 2 or 3 times I go beyond it. Like with that Vanity Fair piece, like I'm not very proud of my work, but I'm very proud of what I did in that piece. Cause writers, there's all kind of shit in that thing that I see and that I value that I'm sure nobody else sees or values. But it was just a hard piece to pull off. And with that piece, I had a vision. And the whole point was I was trying to play with like the 14 days of quarantine, the 14 days of positive corona numbers that all these states are supposed to adhere to. I was playing with this notion of 14 in the Bible. And I was like, I just want to do it, and I want to fucking stun on my governor. And before I wrote a word, that's what I wanted to do. And then it took like 2 months or 3 months to get it done. And then the poetry is the piece. Do you know what I'm saying? The poetry is in the form. The poetry is in the way the sentences move. The poetry is in the repetition of certain phrases that you hope readers. Some of them, obviously, readers will remember. Some of them, you hope readers remember. So yeah, I do think the vision is comes first for me, but I hope the vision would be also poetic, but it's not initially. Initially, it's just like a blob of like some color I've never seen, and then I try to get close to that.
So I don't want to throw this out at you because we haven't had and I'm not going to call you out, but I got an email from Kiese like 2 minutes before showtime saying, I'm going to be a few minutes late. I'm singing happy birthday to a community member. So that's how beautiful you are too. I was vamping a bit at the start if nobody noticed. But secondly, and feel free to say no, but would you be amenable at some point during this hour to reading a bit from one of the pieces?
Oh yeah. You just gotta let me know a little bit ahead of time because I gotta I'll have to find it.
All right, that's no. We'll be talking, so we'll see if we even get to it. We have a lot to say. We have a lot to share. So this interests me greatly. You said when I read that brief quote, and I have a couple other things I'd like to bring out, but when I read that one piece, you said you wrote that when you were 16.
Yeah, that line. I wrote that line. That because it started off as a question, and then it was the first time that I can remember actually revising, like my mama told me to, and so it was a question like, is America full of violent people or something? And then I went back and I lived in Maryland at the time, and Marion Barry had just gotten set up, caught, smoking crack, and my mama was just like, so, I mean, she was sad in a way I hadn't seen her sad, and I couldn't understand why, but she just thought about what Marion Barry meant and what the image of Marion Barry meant. Now being able to, imagine that with a guy with a crack pipe and all that shit, and so so I realized that sentence when I was living up in Maryland that year.
So how much of it is you hear these glimmers, you see these things? Is there a notebook? Is it all here? Is there a combination thereof? How do you keep it all together, and how do you know when to pull it out? How do you know when to pull that out of your back pocket?
Yeah, I'm always writing, fam. I wish I was one of these people like Jay-Z or all these people want to be like, I don't write anything down, I just keep it up. Not me. I write the shit down because I can't remember the shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, I have to, a lot of times now I have to write shit on my phone because I just don't have a pad and pen with me often when I'm driving. And that's where a lot of times I get a lot of ideas, but I got to write it all down. And I hate when I fucking forget it, fam. Like, I got this short story about this idea that was like, sure that it was, I'm writing it from the point of view of the idea, where the idea was sure it was going to be so earth shattering and shit. But then the fucking, body of the idea just kept doing shit. And so it forgot it. And anyway, at the end of the story, we find out the idea makes its way out, but it's like most ideas not that illuminating at all. But that's how most of my ideas are. I think they fire and shit, and then they really not,
No, I doubt that's true.
That's true.
I doubt that's true. But here's the thing. The other part of it's so interesting to me is, how do you know when to use what? So you have all these things written down. Do you hold on to things? Do you keep it in your back pocket and say, no, this I'm holding on to. This is a gem. This is something that needs its own spotlight.
Yes. I hold on to all of it, fam. Like I hold on to all of the sentences and again, like when I'm making something, like once I'm committed to making something, then I can, what's an example? Like before I wrote that piece in Vanity Fair, I was obsessed with this idea of Black police officers in this town I live in guarding Confederate statues. And I hadn't even conceived of the piece. And I think when Ta-Nehisi Coates called me and he was like, doing this thing, I want you to do this. And he was like, you got any ideas? And I was like, I don't have any ideas fully formed yet, but I think I want to build something around the idea of Black soldiers, Black police officers guarding Confederate soldiers in neo-Confederate South. And so it just, that was that. And then by the time I finished that draft, that scene wasn't in there at all. So I had to go back and see if it could fit. And it actually fit. I thought it fit. So yeah, I just hang on to everything in terms of the sentences and stuff. I got like bad, on my phone and on my computer, but also I just got like big garbage bags filled with notebooks that I just hang on to, not because I'm precious or anything, but because I just don't want to forget something that was useful, Well,
if you ever need any help cataloging anything, I'll come down and I'll help you sort things out. I'll be happy to be your box boy and put whatever you need.
I feel that. Thank you.
An honor. So I am being selfish, and I'm enjoying our conversation so much. I'm forgetting my community. So we have some comments, and I just want to, and they're kind of backed up. So let me just throw some chyrons up on the screen. Cynthia says, powerful. Andreas says, a word. Chris, by the way, is our volunteer who's in the comment section. Giving links to make sure they get to your stuff. And we have a bookshop BRCSJ.org link to our Power Hour, all the authors that have appeared. So all your books are there for people to purchase. And Chris says, I lived in Biloxi, Mississippi for 5 years, went to school at USM. It's a different culture than the North. And then Cynthia comes back, and here's a question. So you're teaching. She's asking, is your university treating you kindly? And what's it looking like in the fall? Will you have remote learning? Do you know what your situation is?
Well, I got lucky, I guess, or, maybe not lucky, but, for this year, I taught for 20 years straight, and I got lucky this year, and I got this fellowship at the Radcliffe Center up in Cambridge, and I was supposed to be there. I had a fellowship, but then they made the fellowship virtual, so I wasn't going to be teaching this year anyway. I was just going to be finishing these 2 books, and but my colleagues and my friends where I teach, some of them are in the classroom right now. It's a mess. They got, there was 138 kids yesterday or something like that, 128 who tested positive. And again, like a lot of our colleagues are older. There's, like there's some of them are damn near 85 and shit. And just, I don't know, but I don't know how deep people want to get. But what I've seen in this thing is that, like, I think a lot of times every day we decide like what's worth living or dying. And so I have a lot of older colleagues, and some of us who are younger, like, why would this person who's 85 or 80, like, why the fuck would they even want to go back in the classroom? Why don't they retire? But like, if you've been like, this is what you've been doing for 60 years, and you choose to go out this way, possibly or not. I'm literally just coming to this understanding yesterday. I'm like, it's not in some way. My hope is that you don't harm anybody else. But if you're 85 and you have like these pre-existing conditions, and you've really told yourself that if I get sick and die, I want it to be from trying to educate and be educated by young people. Like, I got to be okay with that. And for the most of the semester, I was just like, I wanted everybody who could to stay out of the classroom. But the other day, one of my elder colleagues was like, this is all I know. And if I go like this, I go like this. And, and their partners, they live alone. They're like 81. Their partner is not alive. And I can't be trying to judge that person,
That's happening, right? People are making choices. This is teaching is not something people do for the money or for the fame, the glamour. Right. People do it because they believe in the essence of teaching, of giving themselves. So you're going to find the vast majority of those folks are so torn right now.
Yeah. I mean, most don't want to be there. I just want to say most of my colleagues do not want to be in the classroom because they don't trust the institutional apparatus to keep anyone safe, including them, their partners, and their children. But there are a few older ones who have been vehement about like wanting to be physically in the space. And I didn't understand it until yesterday.
Yeah, I still don't understand it, because you're talking about no matter what precautions the university or the school, whether it's K through 12, whatever it may be, whatever precautions you're taking, any kid from 3 years old to 23 years old is not ready to adhere to the guidelines they need to adhere to outside the classroom. So no matter how safe and pristine that classroom is, that kid's going out. I remember what crazy shit I did when I was in college. Right. And there's no way kids aren't doing that,
Right.
I fear that our schools, again, from the young ones to college age, our schools are putting profit before people.
Yeah. That's what institutions do. And the thing that, and again, like this is, again, I was trying to not be this person who I was before yesterday. But my problem with other professors is like, at least the people that I rock with, we all stand up in front of the world and profess these particular kinds of politics that are about trumping, like, that are about like, obliterating this notion of like money over people, profit over people. And we know that we all fucking are full of shit for the most part, but like, yeah, fam, that's where I am. And then it's tough too, because when I taught at Vassar for a while, which is a wholly different institution than University of Mississippi. And the people who really wanted the school not to be shut down are some of my friends who work buildings and grounds and work in the cafeteria, right? Because especially down here, they can't fucking unionize. They don't make no fucking. They make far from a living wage, and those are also the people who I think are going to be the most exposed if the students come back. But then it's just like ethically, like where I'm not even teaching this semester. I'm fucking quote unquote in my house, safe, quote unquote safe. And so that's why sometimes I'm just not sure what I'm supposed to say when I know people who have like incredible politics, who are buildings and grounds workers, who are like, I literally will not be able to pay this rent or my fucking car note if these kids don't come back. And of course, we know the problem is way much larger than that. So then how the fuck do I look being like, man, fuck that. Like they shouldn't come back when I'm going to get my check this year regardless. So I'm just never sure where to stand. I just think for me, it's complicated, you know?
It's complicated for all of us. And the truth is, I've been thinking about you a lot, even above and beyond you being on the show, because there's this quote that again, stuck out to me and shows how precarious. You wrote this in a different context, but I think it's so very, very meaningful right at this moment. And you say, quote, not so deep down, we all know that safety is an illusion. That only character melds us together. That's why most of us do everything we can, paren, healthy and unhealthy, and paren, to ward off that real feeling of standing alone so close to the edge of the world. And I think that speaks so powerfully to right now. And that's not what you wrote it about, but that's what it says. And I think that speaks for so many of us.
Yeah. That's like another one of the maybe 4 or 5 sentences I've written that I was like, okay, that one is true. You know what I mean? Yeah, I believe I believe so much in collectivity and I just really believe in people. And I believe people also fuck up everything, but I just really believe in communities and people. But I also believe that we are all at some point, as Baldwin says, alone, at the edge of the world. And you got to decide, like you jumping, you watching, you walking backwards. Even when you walk back, you're still at the edge of the world, whether you realize it or not. The hope is that you can maybe understand you're there with the rest of every human being on earth. But I think it's hard to feel that way, I definitely feel that way. I felt that way, ironically, less during the pandemic, which is sort of strange to me. But yeah, man, I feel that way. What do you do? What do you do with loneliness?
Well, I do this. I tell you the truth. Ending the day, the past, 130 some odd nights, and most of them very, very odd indeed. But ending the day with the Power Hour and talking to folks like you, whether they're inspirational community leaders who are here in our neighborhood, or if they're people like, yourself, Jen Baker, Valerie Jarrett, they're people who have made a difference in the world. To me, there's no difference. To me, it's about someone has reached out to someone else and made a difference in a life, 5 lives, in 500 lives, or exponentially thereof. And to me, that's what brings me back from the edge.
Right.
For me, it's about looking at the inspiration and the example of others.
Yeah, that's it. And for me, that's what art. Yeah, I never articulated this way, but sometimes art can bring you back from the edge, or, if you want to get real hokey, can like make you think that what is like a steep fall is like a opportunity to soar. Like I think the best art kind of tells you the thing that you're looking at isn't the thing you're looking at. Now go and actually like utilize what it really is. And sometimes it's falling off a cliff. Maybe it's just opportunity to soar and not fall. Yeah.
I mean, that's how you make the most of a life, is that you look at the opportunities. I think about the pandemic, and I think about, how Corona has affected us these past 5 months. I think about the epidemic of systemic racism and what we've dealt with, the past 3 months concretely and so powerfully, but for decades and centuries, obviously. And I think about the opportunities we have for connectivity, though.
Right.
Because those things don't happen, you and I are on having this conversation.
Oh, that's right. Not at all. Nope, not possible.
Right.
That's it.
So you asked me, and I wanna reflect back to you. You mentioned briefly about looking to art and culture, but how do you bring yourself back from that edge, if I may ask? And if that's too personal a question, you can let me know and we can move forward. But how do you bring yourself back? So I think our community, especially from someone like you that have written such tremendously difficult things, you've basically performed open heart surgery on yourself and then put it on a page.
Right.
We've watched the process of it while we read it.
Right.
So how do you then find the way to sew yourself back up?
Woo! I haven't found a way to sew myself back up. I used to sew myself back up with like running and playing ball a lot, but I messed up my body, so I don't do that anymore. I don't know, fam. I'm trying to get better at that. I don't know how to sew myself back up. I don't know how to walk away from the edge. I mean, one thing I could say that makes me feel not close to the edge, and it's very complicated, is like I'm obsessed with basketball, like obsessed. So I just watch a lot of basketball, talk a lot of basketball. And that makes me feel happy, like it makes me feel not close to the edge at all. It makes me feel free to just talk shit about like a kind of excellence that I wish I had that I don't have. But other than that, like I don't, I need different practices. I need I need some sort of stretching practice, some sort of meditation practice. I live alone right now too. You know what I mean? Like it's, and I've lived alone for a long time. And, living alone I'm closer to 50 than I am 30. Do you know what I mean? And sometimes I got to remind myself of that. And like, when you live alone, when you're closer to 30, okay. But when you start getting closer to 50, you living alone, particularly during a fucking pandemic, when you're already prone to like, you're someone who likes to write about intense joy and intense terror. I don't know. It can be lonely, but it's less lonely because I know so many more people are lonely. When before the shit, I just fooled myself into believing people weren't as lonely. So again, it's just very complicated to me. I'm answering questions you didn't even ask. I don't know why I'm doing that, but I don't know. I need to figure out some different ways to pull myself back from the edge or to sew myself back up.
Well, it sounds like you're finding it. It sounds like you're finding it and maybe not even realizing it, because I hear it in your words. I hear, I know, because the first time I reached out to you, you came back and said, "Sounds good, fam." And there was an instant connection. There was that instant warmth, that instant bond, that instant beloved community. Right. So what you just said, I think, is what, if you don't mind me trying to bring back to you, show you this thread, you're seeing how so many of us are lonely during this.
Right.
And it's allowing you to see that your struggle is universal.
Absolutely.
Even more so than you might have thought before.
Yeah, absolutely. But I just think we all, to different degrees, just like I think we all have at least 3 or 4 superpowers that are maybe specific to us, and some other superpowers that pretty much a lot of other people have. I also think we have like weaknesses, and I think all of us take our knees out in some form or fashion. I think all of us get in our own way in some form, and sometimes I worry that isolation, which is what I need to get my work done, is also a way to take my legs out in terms of a different kind of happiness. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, I do find rigor and terror and joy through the creation of art, but I also think that friendship is like the more important creation of art. and relationships. And so even like getting dogs and shit, you know what I mean? Like I just never understood how important dogs were to people until the pandemic. And I mean, I know dogs keep some people alive, and more importantly, keep some people kind to themselves and other people. And I've just been thinking a lot about how you live alone if you're lucky enough to live into your 50s and 60s and 70s. If you choose to, you know, how do you create a life of love and wonder if you also necessarily live alone? And I don't know. Both of my parents are like, you know, like this is where I followed my parents, and I didn't intend to, but you know, they're both in their 60s and they live alone on different coasts, and you know, they weren't married for but a year or two. And I never thought that I would be that person too, you know. So like, I don't know. The alone thing is cool and shit because we can do it. A lot of people can't be alone, but I'm tired of it. Real talk.
Well, if you ever want to visit here, we have a guest room all made up. You are welcome. You are welcome. And I want to get back to our community again. I'm being selfish. First of all, you were mentioning yoga, and our wonderful volunteer Chris says we have queer yoga here on the Power Hour every Tuesday. If you ever want to join us,
oh wow,
we'd love to have you. Same time, 8 p.m. Eastern time. We do queer yoga, and it's a pretty wonderful practice with a great yoga master who talks about the toxicity of masculinity and how it's affected his body as a queer person and how he needs to assert his identity through the practice. And it's really a beautiful thing. So please feel free to join us if you ever wanted to start up. And Cynthia asks, is there an essay on basketball strikes resolving racism in your future?
Wow. Nah, I'm not even gonna lie to you. I have to that Vanity Fair piece that I just wrote, or that just got published, is the last like thing that I can write publicly for a while because I have 2 books due in a few months. So I want to write about the strike, and I want to write about people's response to the strike, but I literally can't. I can't break my own rule, and I also just have some deadlines I can't break. Yeah, I think it's so interesting though. Like, you know, like they did what they did, which was unprecedented, and then I saw these people today being like they caved. You know, like people who are at work, you know, at jobs that they complain about, talking about they caved, and I guess they caved, but like. You're not even going. You didn't fucking make it a day. A lot of people I know didn't leave work for a day. And I just think, you know, being in the academy is so hard to get us all as professors or fucking, you know, academic workers to ever collectively do anything for a day. I've been teaching since I was 22 years old, 23. We've never collectively as a faculty ever just done one thing for a day. And the fact that they could get that done in a day and impact, we're talking about it today. The world is talking about it. They got some concessions from owners. I don't know. I don't think that's a failure. I get how it can be perceived as a failure, though. But I just don't know if it's our place. I don't know if we have the moral authority to say that they failed. That's what I'm saying. So if I wrote, I would write something like that. But then it would turn.
You can certainly send me your notes and I'll flesh it out.
Okay. All right.
I'll be happy to finish it for you. How important is language to you? I would think language is really important to me. You know, it's funny you're talking about age. My dad turned 82 yesterday. It was his birthday.
Wow.
And he's an incredibly influential figure in my life. He taught me the importance of words, from playing Scrabble, never letting me win, to showing me Vonnegut and J.D. Salinger, and he was. I always felt he was someone who should have written more himself. But language is always really important to me, and I know how important it is to you. And what really upset me yesterday was everyone calling it a boycott when it was obviously a strike. And to those when folks misuse language like that, and I think it was purposeful myself, does that frustrate you? Does that piss you off?
Oh, yes, indeed, Phil. I mean, this is what I'm saying in terms of growth. Like I'm a much I'm a much milder sort of person than I was just even a few years ago. I mean, you know, like the word, we could talk about this shit for 6 hours straight. There's so many words that I think we concede to, like the obliterators of fucking like love. You know, microaggression is one. We concede, like, what the fuck is a microaggression? You know what I mean? We're calling workers who decided that they were gonna collectively fucking not work, right? A boycott? Like, part of that is because we don't want to see these fucking black men primarily as workers, right? Like, as workers. So they're boycotting, you know? And so, I mean, I would be great if they were boycotting some shit, but that's not what that was. That is not a boycott. That wasn't a boycott, right? And yeah, so I think we gotta quit conceding words to these people. I don't use words on their terms, you know. I just think we lose as soon as we do that. Even if we have like great intentions or liberatory intentions, you know, I don't think you use the words of people who are, you know, you try as much as you can to not use the assemblages of words that people who hate you give you. And that's just another example of it, you know.
And speaking of words, you talked about superpowers before, and it harkens back to another piece that you wrote. You write, quote, "Our superpower, I was told since I was a child, was perseverance. I was told since I was a child the ability to survive no matter how much they took from us. I never understood how surviving was our collective superpower when white folk made sure so many of us didn't survive. And those of us who did survive practiced bending so much that breaking seemed inevitable."
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I just think, you know, like I just grew up in a mostly black city in the South, Mississippi, where in the face of like, you know, structural and all sorts of fucking domination, people used to always counter that with like notions of like black perseverance and strength. And I obviously think that like black perseverance and strength is, and the ability to revise is like one of the things that we have done exceptionally well, particularly if you're talking about, you know, folks who came over in transatlantic slave trade. But like, I just think we don't need to act like most motherfuckers didn't survive, fam. Like, we didn't survive. Like, you know, and as you see from COVID, like the conditions that these folks have made us live in have made us more susceptible to damn near everything that's deadly. So that doesn't mean, you know, I just don't think we need to act like, you know, we're going to survive no matter what. No, that has not been true. We haven't. We've done a lot in, like, I think the ritualizing and the mourning of death. I think that is actually what creates the sorrow songs, spirituals, the blues, jazz, hip hop, soul music, funk, contemporary literature that is sort of like rooted in like kinds of morality that don't exist without the existence of black bodies. But all of that shit being said, you know, these people didn't win, but they fucking killed a lot of us and they made a lot of us suffer. And I just think we need to never forget that, as much as we need to forget that, like, they wanted us to suffer a lot more and they wanted a lot more of us to not make it. And so I just think we can hold both of those, you know. I have to hold both of those.
Right there, that's the magic. What you just said right there. It's they made so many people suffer, but not as many as they wanted to. And that's what you hold on to. That's what you have.
Yeah. Yeah, fam. I mean, you know, like, I don't judge my life based on what the worst of white folks want for me, but I am aware that the worst of white folks don't want me talking to you right now about anything honest. You know, like, that's what I know. They don't want this conversation to happen. You know, we start talking about moving away from the edge. I think people who brought me here, who encouraged my great grandmama, my grandmama, my mama to a degree, to like work for way less than they were deserved. I don't think they want those people to be alive and to tell those stories. And they are, and we are, and we did. And some of the shit that my grandmama was talking about that happened in 1945, 1950, she's saying is worse in 2020 than the shit she experienced in 1940s. Do you know what I'm saying? So like, I just think we can hold a paradox of all our individual experiences and definitely like the collective American experience, and what the collective American experience has demanded of Black people is survival in the face of like the most utmost dominant, that's just fucking domination. And you know what I think white people and you know writ large have gotten is like grace and kindness, and in the face of that, I think whiteness as an entity has fucking like smacked us in the face over and over again in spite of our grace and kindness. And I think when you're humiliated like that, sometimes you cease to survive. And when you're humiliated like that, sometimes you double down on survival. But we're complicated, and so some parts of us don't survive, and parts of us fucking like will never die. But that's paradox, and I just think that's a lot harder than being like we so strong or we so weak, you know.
What's amazing to me, again, there's so many things in your writing, the beauty of it, the power of it, the violence in it, the harshness in it, the bringing it back to community, all of it. But what speaks to me, and especially with the communities that we serve, that I am so involved in, is the inclusivity that you find in your work. And you just said that, you know, they slap us and they slap us. And to me, it's amazing that during that, you can still have your eyes open and see the suffering of others in different communities. And, you know, and I again, a term like intersectionality seems not strong enough for what you see in your work. And if I may, there's one last piece I wanted to read that I think speaks to that, because it seems you can look out your window both literally and figuratively and see the world suffering as you suffer and bring that together as a communal experience. And this is what you write, quote, "My body knew things my mouth and my mind couldn't, or maybe wouldn't, express. It knew that all over my neighborhood, boys were trained to harm girls in ways girls could never harm boys. Straight kids were trained to harm queer kids in ways queer kids could never harm straight kids. Men were trained to harm women in ways women could never harm men. Parents were trained to harm children in ways children would never harm parents. Babysitters were trained to harm kids in ways kids would never harm babysitters. My body knew white folk were trained to harm us in ways we could never harm them." How do you find that? How do you find that? How do you look out as you're being slapped? How do you see past yourself? Because there's so many folks who can't do that, who don't have any of that experience.
Yeah, you know, I think that you mean you're giving me opportunity to talk like really mushy, because I believe in the theoretical like composition of mushy, but I just think all of that shit, I think it's cliche, but we are multitudes. Like, do you know? Like I literally, when I thought that, I was people saw me as like a little Black boy, right? Who would eventually become a Black man who had intimate relationships. I'm not talking about sexual, but intimate relationships with other Black girls and Black women who like everybody else in this world is trying to like understand sexuality and where they fit on a spectrum. Like who could be a babysitter, who could be a parent, who could abuse a child, who could be abused, who could abuse, who you know what I'm saying? So like everything in that. Now I can't be white, right? But I think white folks dictated so much of who they thought we are that we had to anticipate and understand white people in order to survive. So in some way, like white people's understanding of themselves and who we are was always a part of us too. So my point is, I think to write that paragraph and understand that, you just got to look like, you have to look within yourself enough till you find those multitudes of personality and sensibility, which are really like multitudes of other people. Do you know what I mean? Like whether people disagree or not, like I know parts of me are young, old, fucking queer, cis, you know, potentially trans. Like, so I don't know. It ain't even about looking outside. It's about trying to find folks within myself because I know I'm not special. You know, I'm not just a black boy who got treated like shit by his fucking white teachers. I'm a black boy who got treated by shit by his white teachers, who often was a fucking bystander when other black girls were getting fucked up and didn't stand up for himself, who was also getting abused by like sexually abused by older people, but who would also emotionally abuse like young women and girls as I got older, you know, like that, all of that shit is who I've been, who I'm trying, and you know, like, so for me, it's about looking at the slithers of yourself and knowing that that is part and parcel of who everybody in the world is. And then you just got to try to use your art or use whatever the fuck you have to try to eradicate or understand or reckon with like that contradiction. Like we're all so many different kinds of people and we all survive so many different kinds of things. And we all encourage other people to have to survive shit they shouldn't have to survive. I think once you understand that, I think you write a paragraph like that, you know?
What's amazing is, and I forgive me, I think I've said that ad infinitum tonight, but it bears repeating when talking about your work, and that's just the gosh darn truth. Any writer would give every pen they own to write one paragraph like that. But everything I've read tonight, you know, 4 or 5 different passages are equally powerful and meaningful, and there are literally dozens more in your work. So
Thank you.
Please go. There is a link in the comment section, folks, to find all of Kiese's books on our bookshop.org Power Hour list, and please buy these books. You know, as I say, and I mean it so much, you know, buy one for a friend, buy one for an enemy who'll become a friend, buy one for your local school, buy all 3 of the books. Make sure all schools have this on their shelves. And then perhaps most importantly, I mean, I want you to go out and buy the books and support our guests, but make sure that your local libraries have copies. And that's an easy phone call. You call old school, you dial the number, and you say, hey, do you have this book? Do you have Heavy? Do you have these essays? And if they don't, you say, please get a copy, and they will. Yeah. This has to be on the shelves. This has to be on your shelf at home. This has to be on the shelves at the schools. This has to be on the shelves at the libraries, because this is how our kids see each other. This is how kids make sure that they are seen and they are recognized in the words that you've written.
That's right. Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here with y'all, and just thank you for making a way for us and helping, whether you see it or not, like helping take care of us during this time when so many other folks have neglected to do that. So thank you. I appreciate it, man. I
appreciate you being here. And I have one last question to just kind of bring us home. And what is home? You said that you wrote that first sentence I spoke of at the top of the hour. You said you wrote that at 16. When did you know you were a writer? And when did it start to coalesce for you that this was going to be your path in life?
I mean, that's an embarrassing question because it's so tied up into my like obsession with capitalism, right? Like, I didn't think I was a writer until I had made enough money from writing to buy my tool, which is a computer. So I didn't have a computer in undergrad. I didn't have a computer in grad school. I didn't have a computer in my first 2 years of college. And then I earned enough money to buy myself a laptop at like 20, what was I, like 28. So in this fucked up way, I was like, I became a writer at 28, but that's bullshit. I really became a writer when I revised that sentence at 16 about violence. You know what I'm saying? When I went in there and I looked at something I wrote and I forced myself to like rewrite it, like that's when I think I really became a writer.
Well, we are so thrilled. And I want to ask you this, just there's the book of essays is being re-released in November. Is that correct?
Yes.
And it's revised, and there's some more content to it.
Yeah, there's I mean, there's a long story to it, but you know, the dude who bought that book, he bought it for $1,000. I asked him, I told him I had 3 years. We sold like 50,000 copies, so he made a killing. I didn't make any money really off of that book, and then I wanted to add these essays to it, and he was like, no. And then I was like, well, can I just buy my book back? And he was like, yeah, for $300,000. And I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? And like, I thought this dude was my friend. So long story short, this summer I didn't spend $300,000, but I bought the books back and I published them the way I actually wanted them to be published, with essays that like are just better. You know what I'm saying? And so I took some essays out. I'm gonna rework those somewhere else. But like there's some essays in there, like the one I wrote for Vanity Fair is in there. There's an essay I wrote on Outcast on my grandmother that's in there. There's an essay on this kid DeAndre Brown and Daydreaming. So there's 6 of the original essays are there, but there's also 7 new pieces that are in there.
So worth waiting for. So we should pre-order the new book, and that's when we should have on our shelves.
Yeah, I was very thankful for that.
All right. So here's the deal, my friend. I've heard your pain, if you don't mind me saying so. I've heard your difficulties, and this is what I offer you. You were very, very generous before, and you said that you appreciate what we're doing for the community and doing this Power Hour. You have done the same exponentially, and I hope that you can get a glimmer, an iota of what you have brought to the family, to the community, to so many folks by reading your work, by when you have these conversations, and you're so generous with your time, you have these conversations with so many different folks on so many different platforms, you know, at really no benefit to yourself except for the experience of doing so. You give back so much. So I hope that what can bring you back from the edge sometimes is remembering or seeing. You said that it all comes from inside, that all these visions that you have of other communities and other people was really yourself, and you could see that, and that's what brings you the empathy. So I hope that you can then, what I thought was looking outside the window for that, I hope you can look outside the window and see what your work is doing for so many other people.
I'm working on that. Thank you so much. I need to get better at that. Thank you though for the nudge.
Well, anytime you need a nudge, you know where to find me.
All right. Thank y'all. I appreciate this, fam. Thank you.
All right, my friend. Be well. Have a great night. Thank you.
Thank you.
You know, when, if I may just be so bold as to say, there's some guests I really look forward to. I look forward to all our guests. I mean, literally every one of our guests has been extraordinary. That's the absolute crystal truth. There's some guests I look forward to because their work has been so powerful and meaningful to so many. And Kiese tonight was one of those guests, and I feel he didn't disappoint in any way, shape, or form. This has been an incredibly meaningful night. I implore you to let your communities know, folks that didn't see it tonight, it's always available on our page. This is a keeper. And I want to thank you for sharing it with us, because without you, there's no community. There's no Power Hour without you who watch us. Forgive me, words are failing me, because I feel, how can you speak after hearing the words of Kiese like that? So I'm going to bid you a good night, and I'm going to ask you to please go find the books. As I said, they're available on our bookshop.org Power Hour list, which is in the comment section. And join us tomorrow night. Join us every weeknight from 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 4 Pacific. These conversations are so meaningful and so incredibly important, and they're because you're with us. So, as always, take care of each other. Take care of your families, chosen or otherwise. And most importantly, as you heard tonight, take care of yourselves. We'll see you in 23 hours and 59 minutes tomorrow night. And be well and be good. And as always, until soon, much love and respect, everybody.